All right, I think we'll start before anyone else leaves. we got the diehards here now who are staying to the end of Springboard, which is where all the best parts are at the end of Springboard. Trust me. My name's Gary Occhiogrosso, and forgive my voice. I know I sound a little bit like The Exorcist today. I got some seasonal allergies going on. I am the managing partner for a company called Franchise Growth Solutions. We are a franchise advisory firm. We are involved in franchise development. We also do franchise sales. We do infrastructure building and private equity at the back end. So sort of a cradle to grave organization in the franchise world, from development to private equity. It's not what we're going to talk about today. Today what we're going to talk about is differentiating your brand in a very crowded, noisy market. And quick story, one of the things that I often ask clients before we take them in to our portfolio, I'll ask the founder, the franchisor, the founder of the company, to describe their brand. We do a lot of restaurants, so I'm going to use a restaurant connection here. I'll say, describe your brand, and nowhere in the description can you mention food. Most of them can't do it. Most of them think their brand is about their product, and it's not. And for those of you who remember early on in Starbucks, when people asked Howard Schultz, hey, does the world really need another coffee company? Schultz said, we're not in the coffee business. We're in the experience business. We're in the experience of having that morning cup of coffee or having that afternoon cup of coffee. That's our point of differentiation. So today, given how noisy the market can be and how crowded the market can be and how we are all influenced by social media, I mean, we're bombarded all the time, every day, it becomes more of a challenge if you're an emerging brand to take your brand and tell the world why you're different. What is it about your brand that separates you from 10 or 20 other people? So that's sort of the setup here. On the panel, we have Kim Collier, who is with Ducklings Early Learning Center. We've got Mike Zabasco and Sally Francielli, right? Did I get it right? Close. Okay, so that's okay. People don't even get close with my last name. So, I'm going to ask them each to sort of give a little bit about their background and about their company, and then we'll get into some questions. So, Kim, you want to start here?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kim Collier with Ducklings Early Learning Center. I am Chief Development Officer. Ducklings just celebrated its 30th anniversary. It was started by my mom in 1994, and we've been franchising for about 8 years now. We just opened our 15th unit, about to open number 16. Ducklings is full-day fun and learning for children 6 weeks through 6 years of age.
All right. Hey, I'm Mike Zabasco. I'm the president of Famous Toastery. We are a breakfast, lunch, and brunch spot. Opened, thank you, based in, I thought all 7 of them could hear me.
Okay.
Plenty of good seats up front. Based in Charlotte, North Carolina, actually Davidson, North Carolina. We are 6 company-owned locations and 18 franchise locations. We exited franchising in 2020 because we had some scalability and unit economic issues that we corrected. We're back into that leg of the business as of 2023, and we've got 10 additional in the pipeline, 5 of which will open in the next 18 months, and then we've got some pretty serious expansion plans after that. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'll turn it over to Sally Fasinelli.
You actually got it right. Okay, so I'm Sally Fasinelli. I have been in franchising for way too long, but I can't leave it. I love it. It's been almost 30 years, 28 years and counting. So I am currently the CEO of Salty Dog Pet Salon and Bakery. We are a pet grooming brick and mortar salon with retail and bakery items. And no, we don't cook them. They're just treats and like cupcakes and stuff that come from vendors. We are an emerging brand. I only have 3 open locations. We just went through an acquisition, and I have a lot more sold and coming very soon. So.
Great, thank you. And yes, Sally's been in the business a long time, has a really deep background in franchising, so go on our LinkedIn page, you can see a lot of stuff. So let's start out by each of you describing what you believe makes your brand different. By the way, you can use your product or service in the explanation. That was just the Peter Thiel question up front. Okay, so Mike, why don't we start with you? And talk a little bit about why you're different from everybody else that's doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's not just restaurants, but more specifically in the brunch space, where there's quite a few people there. However, it's still emerging, right? The 500-pound gorilla for brunch is First Watch. I think most folks have heard of them. Yep. Most people haven't heard of us. And that's a point of differentiation for us. Our name, Famous Toastery, we've really had to lean into. In terms of points of differentiation, is it's quality. We are scratch made. There's certainly people in our space that will want it to be easy. They'll take in a frozen brick and heat it up and sell it at a low price point. For us, it's about value not being what you pay, but what you get for what you pay. Mm-hmm. So it's quality and about experience, and that's what a franchise partner's signing up for at Famous Toastery.
Okay, so just real quick on that, maybe you could expand a little bit on the differentiation from the consumer's point of view versus the potential franchisee's point of view, because franchisees have a very different motivation when they're looking at a brand. If I'm looking to buy a Famous Toastery, yeah, I care about the quality of the product and I care about that. That's different from what the customer is looking for, the end customer. So how do you roll those points of differentiation into the franchise presentation?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We were just talking about this today, and I talk about this a lot. And that's
good. You were practicing for this.
I actually talked
good.
with that guy right there at lunch today about it. But we're 100% a scratch-made kitchen. Not everybody wants to do that, but we believe that the guests can absolutely taste the difference there. Most places buy a pre-processed turkey. We bake our own turkey every day in-house. Most chefs will tell you it doesn't matter. We think it does. So it's that type of thing. But the back end of all that is there's a residual benefit from doing it. It's much more cost effective. So as I mentioned in the intro, economic model is everything, particularly as labor costs, not just in my restaurant industry, in Sally and Kim's industries as well. Labor has continued to go up, so anywhere that you can save, and if you can save in a win-win scenario, such as cost of goods, by being specific to scratch and making things fresh every day and really able to monitor that stuff. The other thing that we did is as we were doing it, I think in the space, people feel like a 12 to 15 minute ticket time is an adequate ticket time. Mm-hmm. Our standard's 7. It's a 7-minute ticket time. Wow. And because we do that, because we're scratch, because it's simple scratch to make it, you don't have to be a chef to work there or to operate a Famous Toastery. You're going to get, at least on a Saturday or Sunday, an additional 2 table turns out of your investment, your restaurant space in that time. And the guests appreciate that. Guests are trained by someone other than Famous Toastery how long it should take. If we can exceed that expectation, and that's what we were doing experientially, simply put, we're trying to exceed that expectation every time out and be the gathering place within a 2 to 3 mile trade area. So to answer your question very specifically, we have to be the gathering place within 2 to 3 miles of every location. We're not a 28 restaurant chain. We're one restaurant 28 times, and we have to be the place that it's socially acceptable to have a mimosa at 10 a.m.
Oh, okay. I'd do that any day of the week.
Well,
it doesn't have to be Sunday brunch.
Yeah.
Sally, what about you? I mean, you're just getting started with Salty Dog, right? But from a consumer point of view, and then again, I really want to focus on the flywheel. I want to focus on why should I buy your franchise compared to someone else's?
Yeah, so we there's a lot that we do, but in a nutshell, so we are pet grooming. There's a lot of pet grooming businesses out there, right? But one of my co-founders is also the co-founder of Paul Mitchell Schools and partner with John Paul DeJoria at Paul Mitchell. So all of our methodologies and stuff like that, it all comes from tested on humans first So our groomers actually learn how to cut human hair, not all of them, but a lot of them. Our products are Paul Mitchell products. So they are actually people products. Our dog items like the treats and all of those things are a human grade. CBD, all of that stuff. But that's not even really what makes us different. What I like to think that makes us different is the experience. And it is all about the experience. For us, it's about the pet parent, the pet, and the groomer experience. I want everybody to have the best spa-like experience possible. So when a pet parent comes into my salon, their dog is actually excited to come in. They run in. They're not like shaking, and they don't shake when they go home either. They're actually very happy. Most people, their dogs are shaken when they leave, and it's actually they're stressed out. We don't like that. And we do that on the way in and on the way out, all the way through the process. Our concierge systems and our groomers are constantly talking with the pet parent, texting them pictures before and after, like, hey, guess what? Fido's in a bath right now. Look how cute he is. Oh, you know what? Oops, they have some matting on their leg. We need to shave it. So the dog doesn't go home with a shaved leg, and the pet parent's like, what the heck happened? Why did you shave my dog? So we're very interactive because now our clients are both the dog and the mom, and they're very nervous because they're leaving their baby somewhere. So I think that's a big differentiator.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing there, what I'm hearing there on the consumer side, you're obviously building trust. I mean, that's a significant point of differentiation. It's not about the doggy haircut. It's about the trust of leaving my dog with you or my cat with you. On the franchisee side, talk to me about simplicity of operation. If I want to, there's boutique and independent dog grooming and pet grooming places out there, but usually it's the owner that's like doing the haircuts. And to me, by the way, that's not a business, that's a job. So how do you sort of say, okay, the owner is not the one doing the haircuts. What's the difference there in terms of simplicity that would make it attractive to a franchisee investor?
Yeah, none of our owners groom dogs. They don't know how to groom dogs. They don't need to know. They can if they really want to learn how to bathe. I mean, we put them through the process, but they are all business people, executives, multi-unit guys that they see the value. So they come in, we teach them who to hire, how to hire, and then how to train people in the salty way. But they're not ever going to be a groomer.
In the salty ways? Is
Yeah,
that what you just said?
there's a salty way.
That's what I thought you said.
So
in
dogs
the
come in all
Well, that's what
salty
I
and they
thought you
leave
just
sweet.
said. So before we get to Kim, I just want to point out a couple of things about that. So when people are looking at franchising as their development tool, as perhaps their first entrance into entrepreneurship or running a business, and even multi-unit operators. I mean, what I hear from multi-unit operators all the time, they're basically focused on two things: cost of entry and simplicity of operation. So cost of entry and simplicity of operation become your points of differentiation if that's your market. In terms of how you can differentiate your brand as a franchise model is to focus on, hey, what's item 7, like cost of entry? What's item 19? And the greater the span in that, the better off you'll be. But more importantly, how simple is it to operate? Because for folks looking at franchising as a development tool, and I'm very non-emotional about it, they want to know, how can I duplicate? How can I open 50 of these? How can I open 100 of these? So duplications is really important.
With childcare, the franchisees that we attract tend to be very high net worth individuals, and they do oftentimes go to those big names first, the Goddards, the Primroses, because they're the big ones. They have the most advertising, they attract the most attention. But one of the things that we have that they don't is a lot of open territory. We have a lot of room to grow. So that seems to be our value proposition right now. And we utilize it in a very controlled way. We do have a growth plan where we're making sure that we're doing it right, which is my second point. we want to make sure that we're growing our franchise in a really responsible way, meaning that we're supporting our franchisees early on. We've heard over and over again throughout this conference that your initial franchisees need to be those validators, and we're taking that very, very seriously. So anyone that is calling us and speaking with me that is going through that discovery process, when they hit that validation, like, they're talking to our franchisees and they're like, okay, like, let's move it. Let's just, how do I get my hands on one of these? And it's because so we're out of southern Chester County, Pennsylvania, and I do get calls sometimes from Texas and from Florida, and as much as I would like to be like, yes, I'd love to go there, I have to pull up on the reins and say, not yet, because we're trying to grow out on that wheel spoke system where we're just growing a little at a time so that we can support our franchisees in like a rollover manner. But we do have lots of room to grow, so we will get there. We'll get there eventually, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years. And as we get there, our support system is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
So you're selling upside opportunity, which I love. That's why I love emerging brands. You mentioned the word support, so this is for any one of you. And I see Sally's got the mic in her hand. She's ready to go. So very often, franchisors will make franchisees rather, or potential franchisees will make a decision as to which franchise to buy after speaking to franchisees. So franchisees not only share information about money, but they very often share experiences. Hey, the franchisor helped me find a location if it's bricks and mortar, or they trained me, or they're always a phone call away. Talk to me a little bit, Sally, about how Salty Dog is differentiating itself from a support point of view.
I'm so glad you asked, because I was literally that was what I was going to talk about. So one of the things I did when I came on board, I've been on board for a little over a year now, and we were not selling right away. I decided to go back and just make sure we had this really strong base, because I want to give my franchisees a business in a box, basically. Like, they don't know how to do this, right? I want to give them here, you go do it. Here's the plan. You follow the plan, you're going to do well. And what that means to me is we are very tech heavy. We are old school and new school in everything that we do, which is unusual. I have LMS systems. I have amazing real estate teams that, I just plug them into. I say, here, go work with these people, and here's their system. They show you, because we have to have brick and mortar, right? So what is the traffic flow? Who are the dogs in that area? Great, there's dogs. That's not enough. I want to know, are those dogs actually spending money? Are they buying? What are they spending the money on? So I have access to all of that, and to give them that information, I have access to the LMS systems, and I already mentioned that, but that's cool because everything franchisee related from the minute they sign the FA, everything goes through there. Their checklist of, it's a great little system, by the way, their checklist of what they have to do, and like, okay, here's your first 90 days, here's your whatever. And then we literally walk them through the process. They don't have to worry about it. They just need to go do their job.
Yeah, and absolutely. On onboarding and the initial support on site selection and construction and design is a big one, because if they start off in a bad place, it's really hard as a franchisor to come back. So again, a point of differentiation for your brand is not just talking about, oh, we support you and we love you and we're here for you and all that other stuff. It's actually executing on a strategy that is backed by actual assets, whether it's people or technology. And you guys are making this real easy for me because my next question is about technology. So what I'd like to know, and again, for any one of you, is how are you leveraging technology to help you either support franchisees and, I don't want to say or, and how are you utilizing technology to help you differentiate your brand with the consumers? So, Mike, I'm going to ask you, because that's a very consumer-focused brand you have. It's a restaurant, and I kind of relate to that. That's what we do.
Yeah, no, it is. Because we were founder-led for so long, and everything was based on the opinions of the founders, and they had some really strong instincts. They were fantastic. But we were not making database decisions, and in the restaurant space, we had 20 years of menu creep, where everything that was a limited time offer found its way onto the menu, and then it became cumbersome and unable to execute. So it got to a point where we had to use the data to determine what it is our guests wanted, and trying to find the right ways of doing that outside of our point of sale systems and back office systems. We've recently streamlined that entire process because there is an opportunity to be nickel and dimed for stuff that you can't use. Or won't use or won't be part of the system. It sounds cool, but if you don't have the capability as a franchisor to implement everything that's out there, it's impossible to do that. So we've really narrowed down and contracted to an area of just giving us data around the KPIs that impact the guest experience and the franchisee experience. About what that is, and typically that's very POS focused for us.
Yeah. And that's like super important. You know, it's interesting when you are creating points of differentiation on the consumer side, typically those things are extremely visible, and you want them to be visible. It can be anything from your logo to the colors that you use to the messaging on your website or in commercials. They're visible. On the franchisor side or the franchisee side, a lot of what we're talking about, the potential franchisee doesn't see. The public doesn't see what Mike just explained. So in the selling process, obviously, you have to present how your brand is going to support the franchisee, and you have to demonstrate. And then obviously when the franchisee goes to validate with an existing franchisee, they're hearing that same thing over and over again. So what I'd like to know is, how are you, and for any one of you, how are you leveraging that data? So if you're getting information from your guests, how are you leveraging that to sell more or help your franchisees sell more and make more money? Any one of you.
Yeah, well, I'll jump in and I'll pass it over. We have some terrific legacy franchisees, and I want to say that 99% of the great ideas that have happened at Famous Toastery over our 20 years, all of them came from franchisees. And to my predecessor's credit, we've always listened, and that's touchstone. It has to be that way. It's if there's attorneys in the room, I'm sorry, but they are our partners, and I know we can't say that, but they are. So that being said, we also have franchisees that are self-educated on a lot of things, and if one of them is around how they tranche data, and it becomes a matter of opinion that in North Carolina, in Pennsylvania, I think it's called Scrapple.
Yep.
Right? In North Carolina, it's called liver mush, and I don't know what they call it in Iowa, but when I grew up there, we called it eggs and brains, I think. And frankly, where I'm from, I don't think it had room on the Famous Toastery menu, but people were offering that. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, I'm going to lose a portion of our guest base over it. And then we actually run the data and show it's not going to cost you anything. And we're very specific about what has to be on the offering for our guest. If it's not best in the world, if it doesn't drive the economic engine, and it's not something we're passionate about, we just don't get to do it. And we had to arrive there, and we had to learn a common language about that data, saying anything sub 2% menu mix, that's not a passion play for us. There's no way it's driving the economic engine.
That's off the menu. Yeah.
It had to go. And we're all a lot happier about it because I'm just not a fan of liver mush right now myself.
Yep.
So.
So Kim, for you, running an early childhood education center, really your customer is the parent. How are you differentiating yourself from, say, a Goddard or Primrose from what the parent's point of view is? And you can tie it into technology if you want, if there's scheduling apps or things of that nature, but how do you position it so that the franchisee, or the potential franchisee, says, you know what, Ducklings doesn't have a long history or a history as long as Goddard. Yes, I heard about white space and I can open up a bunch of them, but what's different about it? Why is a parent going to gravitate towards your center versus a Goddard or a Primrose?
One thing I'm super proud of with Ducklings is our branding. And Ducklings culture has been carried through with our branding. It just kind of seems to resonate childhood. I think that an early education center should be just that. It doesn't need to be an academy. It doesn't need to mimic college. I think one of the things that we have learned just by listening to our parents and getting to know our parents over 30 years of operations is they like living in the moment with their children while they're little and enjoy them in the moment. Enjoy the fact that they look at the ducks and say, cack, and they like quacking with them, and they like being silly, and the parents like being silly with them. Children learn things in due time. They can only do so much. So having a franchisee spend a ton of money on Promethean boards and have the children learn off of more and more and more screens is inappropriate. Our curriculum is purposely created so that the child is learning what they need to. It's completely developmentally appropriate. We also have a social emotional angle to it, and we try to keep it screen-free. Parents love it. We also incorporate the parents. We celebrate absolutely every holiday that we can. We throw tons of parties. We have events where the kids put on shows. It's silly and it's fun. The families love it. And the kids leave Ducklings continuing to call themselves ducks. We have kids that have gone on to college and they come back and they are so excited to actually be able to work at a Ducklings. And they'll say, like, I'm so happy to be like Miss Mary. I've wanted to do this my entire life. One of our franchise owners actually started with us in the infant room. And one of the things I'm most proud of is we have 5 franchisees that we say are in our Triple Crown Club because they were Ducklings staff, Ducklings parents, and now they're Ducklings owners, which I think differentiates us really, really well.
All right. That's great. That's great. Let's move to a topic that I know haunts a lot of franchisors, and that's lead generation. Now, obviously, you all have 3 different types of customers, but more importantly, you probably have 3 very different personas of the ideal franchisee. So when you're out to market, when you're generating leads, what are you doing on your ads and on your storytelling, on your website, on all your messaging that differentiates you from your competitors to attract the franchisees that you're looking for? Want to go first there, Sally, or Mike?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick.
Yeah,
because
actually, it's you're in a really crowded, noisy space. You're against every restaurant, and then you're in a specific category. So
yeah, and nobody knew who the
what are you
heck
saying
we
different?
were, right? If the Famous Toastery, we were hearing it was is it a bakery? Is it do you make toasters? What do you do? Right? And nobody knew if we were breakfast, lunch, brunch, and we did that. And we were in an interesting space this time last year as we were getting back into franchising. As I look at what both Sally and Kim do, their name kind of tells you where they're headed with that. Famous Toastery was simply because we could not trademark Toast Cafe 15 years ago. The guys came up with the name Famous Toastery. So we had to get the name out as the first step of lead generation, and we did that through a nutty way for a brunch space. We started off with a NASCAR driver. And the primary reason was we could afford it. We could afford this particular NASCAR driver. We found out that the demographics of that skewed 55% female, which was news to us. And I'm here to tell you, this week, a year ago, I had no idea anything going on in NASCAR. But what that NASCAR relationship did was it opened some doors to us that we weren't in. We are a Charlotte-based brand. There's a lot of legs connected to NASCAR in Charlotte. It's not a bunch of people making left-hand turns. There are people that eat brunch, breakfast, and lunch all over Charlotte that have NASCAR connections that did that. So it made sense for us to tie into that. That evolved into a lead gen situation for us because what it was doing, it was getting the name Famous Toastery out there. We were not ranking in any SEO or SEM space as a breakfast, brunch, lunch opportunity. From there, it opened up a door where I think 10% of the country heard of this. Any gamblers out there had to hear our name, Famous Toastery, at least once last year because we had a college football bowl game. The Famous Toastery Bowl, one of a kind, fell in our lap in Charlotte, North Carolina, a tiny little 26 concept or restaurant thing, had the famous Toastery Bowl. By gosh, if Western Kentucky didn't come back from 28 points down and beat Old Dominion, and then ESPN moved it from ESPN to ESPN2 and made everybody really cranky, and it was the only time in our company history where our website crashed because people were trying to figure out what the heck is a famous Toastery.
Yep.
And now they know, and as I'm sitting here today, our lead gen's up tremendously.
Yeah,
It all
yeah.
goes back to we were starting behind where either Kim or Sally are in terms of what name recognition is. What is that? I mean, that's a big branding thing. And
So it's a very interesting point. So if you're thinking about differentiating yourself, if you're using the Meta platform or Google or LinkedIn to generate leads, it's not necessarily, or you don't necessarily need to take an approach that's directly connected to what your consumer is buying to excite a potential franchisee. So what I just heard as an FSO, what I just heard is if I'm telling that story, I'm telling a story of a franchisor that's extremely innovative, that's doing things that may or may not work, but taking chances and doing things in a way that's going to help franchisees make money, and that's a big part of what I want in a franchisor. Sally, how about you? Any sort of lead gen advice on differentiating your brand?
Yeah, so I was mentioning earlier that we're really tech heavy, but we're also old school, right? So we incorporate a lot of different things in our system. One of the things I'm bringing back, we don't have this 100%, we're fine tuning it. But do you guys remember the waivers, the old Liberty people, or the Liberty wears, Liberty tax, they wear the Liberty outfit, they wave outside. Those are so inexpensive. They cost like $15 an hour, and it drives in customers like you would not believe. So I'm working on a mascot. We have a variety of different dog costumes, but I have a dog. People dress up as a dog. They go outside and they wave. So that's for the franchisee, right? But we do so many other boots on the ground type of things. We're an emerging brand. We have 3 locations. I went to my orthopedic surgeon the other day. He's like, "What do you do?" And I told him. He's like, "Oh my God, I've heard of you." Yeah, really? You're in San Diego? You have not heard of us. We do not have a location there. But I also give out shirts. I have shirts that say Salty right across the chest. People wear them all over New York City, all over the place. I have friends that are NFL players so they wear them, they post them. People think they know who we are. So it's awesome. So I'm getting all this like free PR, but we do a lot of things like that. And there's obviously all the normal things as well, but just constantly getting our name out there. And if it's for the franchisee driving their customers, we're always telling them, my franchisees that I want that are part of my system want to make a difference in their local community, which is just a passion of mine in general. Like franchisees in my community, I want to make a difference. My franchisees, their local community is where they should be interacting all the time, whether it's at beer events or dog shows or whatever it is. I want them involved, kids, things like that. It doesn't have to be just dog related.
So, again, here again, from a lead point of view, from a lead gen point of view, and what a franchisee may be interested in, those are all very, very valid points. But on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes you can get so avant-garde, for the lack of a better word, because you want to be so different that people don't even know what you do. And you have to balance the brand message and the brand voice and what the brand stands for with being different. So, Kim, I'm going to toss that to you. How do you balance being different in a crowded space, but not being so different that if people just say ducklings, like, well, what is that? Is that a zoo? Is it a coloring book? Is it a school? Like, how do you balance that?
For instance, we owned a brand. We bought a smaller school years back called Sprouts, Sprouts Early Learning Center. And we advertised for the local small newspaper or whatever, and it was in like a little phone book. And they kept putting us in the garden section.
Oh, okay.
Like, they kept
Good.
doing it. I mean, we even had like a little kid laying in the grass with a book, and it said like Sprouts, a place where children grow. And it was like they saw Sprouts, and they just kept sticking it in the garden section. It's like, damn, will you stop freaking doing that? And we eventually just changed the name over to Ducklings. But it just goes to prove. There's other brands out there, and I'm not going to call them out, but Like, I had a conversation with a friend here, and I was like, that's a really dumb name for a brand because I have no idea. Like, I didn't know that they did that because you could tell that the founder of the brand, like, it was her hobby or something because, like, I thought it was something that it wasn't. And I'm sorry, I'm being cryptic because if I say anything, you're going to be like, I know who that is. And I don't want to make an enemy because, we'll talk later. But it can't necessarily be about like you and like your favorite hobby or like a cute thing your kid says. It really has to just get right to it and right to your customer or speak to what it is that you do. Like Ducklings Early Learning Center. We named it that. Our first school was at a townhouse development called the Townhomes at Pond's Edge in Chadsford, Pennsylvania. But it grew to be a lot more. Ducklings, our tagline is wiggle waddle, here we grow, which is like cute as hell. And ducks are very kid friendly. We have little names for the ducks. One of them is Kevin, one's Gloria, one's Steve. We put little duck prints on things. The colors are great. Rubber duckies. If you don't, you take ducks, but I'll tell you, like you can get a duck that looks like just about anything. And they're fun. Like if you pick a brand, pick something that is going to resonate, where people should be able to look at your brand out of the corner of their eye and like know it. Their brain should fill in the blanks. I mean, I sound like my marketing company.
No. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. We're going to get to one last question, then we'll open it up for questions. But what I'm hearing here is don't allow, and I see this all the time. Again, we deal with emerging brands, we deal with startups, we deal with founders, and they are extremely passionate about what they've created, and everybody's going to love their baby.
They call that ego.
Don't they have the most beautiful baby in the world? And they think when they enter a picture of their baby in the baby contest, of course the baby's going to win. What they forget is that there's 1,000 other people who have entered their baby into the baby contest, and everybody thinks they have the most beautiful baby. So why am I going on and on about this? Is don't allow your passion to interfere with your purpose. Now, if they match, great. But if your purpose is to build and scale a brand, you have to keep it simple. You have to keep your brand at the forefront of people's minds. As Kim pointed out beautifully, they should know at a glance what you're all about right away, and you need to be different. So my last comment here is just starting with you, Sally. Any last word of advice on branding, differentiating your brand, attracting franchisees, and then we'll open it up for questions because it's sort of an abstract topic here.
I feel like you read my mind. There is something I've been speaking on for at least 20 years. And if I can impart this to anybody in the world and they actually listen, is the most important thing that you could ever do for your brand. Most brands, most people, they want to say, here's my brand. Listen to me. Here's my story. And they want the customer to hear what they're saying. Well, the customer can't always hear what you're saying, what you're throwing up on them. You need to communicate in the way that your customer can hear you, which is what she's saying over here. So I could be talking about dog grooming all day long, but obviously it's easy, but maybe that's not how they are going to come to my location. They're like, oh yeah, she's just another dog groomer, great. So I need to communicate to my customers what they are looking for, how they can hear me, not me telling them how great my brand is. That's just not what they want to hear.
Who's going to say their brand sucks? No one. No one I know.
Nobody.
Everyone's going to say their brand is great. And guess what? Everyone is saying the same thing. Mike, how about you?
My brand is great.
Your brand is
I'm
great.
happy to say it.
Okay. So is all of their brands.
Absolutely, everybody. There's a reason. For us, it's been this way. I've been in 4 franchise operations, and when it works, and what it should be about is a safe place for people to do passion and create a living. So there's two things that happen there. There's a point of differentiation and what your experiences for the guest, and then the economic model has to be sound. I worked in a couple locations that there was no financial data in item 19. And the job number one for anybody that's in that space is to have an item 19 so you can have intelligent discussions about what it is we're here to do and how we do it. And I think that really shortens the curve for anybody getting into that relationship.
Absolutely. For a lot of franchise buyers, the point of differentiation is item 19. So if you don't have one, get one. Make sure you get that into your FDD. And again, dealing with a lot of startups and a lot of emerging brands, when we put that in there, obviously there's lots of disclaimers that you have to put in. If you're a young brand, it might, you may have to say that, hey, this is reflective of our 2 company stores. We don't have any franchisees yet. Obviously, you're not saying it that way, but you want to communicate that in a very honest way to a potential buyer. But a big point of differentiation is item 19. Kim, what about you? Last word.
Yes, unit economics, yes, support, all of those things need to come first when it comes to your system. But I think when it comes down to differentiating yourself, don't focus on your competition and what it is they're doing. I think what is really going to make you shine is by focusing on your customer and what it is that they want. And if you listen to your customer, whether it be through going right to them personally or through data, you're gonna do just fine.
Yep. Nothing can present a point of differentiation better, in my opinion, better than authenticity. So if you're authentic about your brand, you'll be different right out of the box because we're all different, and what motivated us to launch our brand is different, and how we do things is different. So be authentic right from the start, and you'll have a point of differentiation to build on. So with that, I'm just going to open it up to questions, and if I don't get any hands up, I'm going to have to call on people. So let's get some questions. No? Okay, way in the back. Just speak up, though. What I'll repeat the question if I hear it.
I'm thinking about like organizations, like let's take pizza for example. Okay, there's so many national pizza brands, and so if you were going to bring your new brand as pizza coming into the market, how would you really differentiate yourself just starting out from all of this major competition that, these brands are embedded, Domino's, Papa John's, all these other really, really big brands. I mean, how do you even just think about breaking in just on the ground level?
All right, I'm gonna address that a little bit at first, and then I'll throw it to the panel because we have 41 brands in our portfolio. 3 of them are pizza brands. Pizza is a unique category within the restaurant space. Pizza is all about the occasion to use. Now, in fast casual, the occasion to use is dictated by frequency of visit, because when someone comes into a fast casual restaurant, they're not dropping $150. They're probably dropping $20. So you need them to come back over and over and over again, frequency of visit. And the only way you do that is to create an occasion to use. So if you think about Domino's, the occasion to use Domino's is I want to just go online, or back in the day, pick up the phone, order a pizza, and have it delivered. That was the occasion to use. We have a brand called Smoke and Oak Wood-Fired Pizza and Tap Room. The occasion to use that's very different. It's fast casual, but you're going to go there. You're probably going to hang out for a half an hour. You're going to order a pizza, and you can pick the toppings and all of that good stuff. But then you're going to go over to a tap wall and pour yourself a beer if you're of drinking age. That's the point of differentiation. So they're in a crowded, noisy space, but they've done something a little bit different. So I'm going to toss it here now just to kind of add to that.
Actually, I loved what you said there. We are affiliated with a place that just opened up in Cornelius, North Carolina, called Goat Pizza. And I asked that exact same question. So I think that's a wonderful question. How are you going to do this? And to your point, it's very occasional. And where they stepped out to be was the sit-down casual dining pizza place. So they're not fighting with the people that have coupons on top every box, but there's always a point of differentiation. And what they're doing is it's capicola, it's top of the line ingredients that you can't find anywhere in North Carolina, but there's always an avenue is what I would impress
the
upon
pizza
you.
business is all about why do I need to go to, why am I using you versus 20 other people? And yes, product is important, don't get me wrong, product's important, but there needs to be something else involved. And it's probably not about the product, by the way. So if you're looking in that direction, I'm going to tell you, turn the apple cart upside down and take a look at what's underneath. Another question. Kirby, my friend in the back, who's got a great concept.
So, to Mike's point, we're talking about press, and I know a lot of this week we're hearing about leveraging press in a crowded marketplace, right? So, relating the press that you spoke about in the news, how are you guys repurposing that press to then stand out for future sales or in your marketing strategies moving forward? Like in a sense like Gary's, like how would he utilize maybe the press that you receive to position your brand a little bit different than your competition?
Yeah, the great residual benefit from the bowl game and the NASCAR relationship is we have content that will live on for years. 10 years from now, we're going to point to Caden Veltkamp, the MVP of the famous Toastery Bowl, who was actually in the transfer portal at the day with that game when he led this 28-point comeback. And next thing you know, he's got his teammates doing toast angels. You know, our first big idea is we wanted to dump maple syrup on the winning coach, right? They graciously declined that. So we said we would do, well, Duke's Mayo is also in Charlotte. They're dumping mayonnaise. We thought syrup's a better, classier thing. But both coaches said, no, thank you. So what we did is we filled 55-gallon buckets full of toast, and then there was toast confetti everywhere, and the kids were doing toast angels. It was awesome. That is, you're going to see it on Famous Toastery for the next 30 years. It'll be a time capsule thing. But yeah, and I also have a mascot too named Mr. Toast, and yeah, we've got.
Once it's online, it
Yeah.
lives forever. Sally, how about you? Can you address Kirby's question?
How to repurpose?
Yeah, repurposing PR.
So I'm a little
I mean,
tired. Repurposing PR. Let's see, what do we do with that? I don't know that we do that much of it yet. We've only got 3 locations, so I mean, we do things like that, but I don't have anything that special that I can repurpose right now. But we do have like a lot of connections with movie stars and things like that. So they bring their dog in to our Atlanta location or whatever. They get groomed. They put that dog on their social. They tag Salty Dog, right? So for us, it's about exposure more than anything and
Correct.
being
Yep.
seen. So I leverage as much of that as I can, and if somebody brings in their dog, yes, we are asking them, can we please post your dog? You know,
I'll tell you what we do with our clients to leverage PR. You position different angles. So if you're doing bricks and mortar, there is some relevancy in the news that you've just opened up another location, because there are real estate journals and there are real estate publications that brokers read, and brokers, real estate commercial brokers, sometimes have clients. And I built the Ranch One concept primarily through real estate commercial brokers. I would connect with brokers who had clients who owned Burger Kings and whatever, who had built out their territory, and now they were looking for another brand. So I would make sure when we got a piece of PR, we angled it in some way that it would end up in Dealmaker, which is a real estate publication. We would also angle it so that it would get into the business section of a local newspaper. We also angled it so we would get into Franchise Times. So you can take one piece of PR and angle it in different ways to attract different reporters. If you're doing a press release also, you can do a press release on signing a new franchisee or opening a new store. You don't have to do one press release. You can do 2 or 3 press releases angled towards reporters who cover different areas, and you might get some earned media that way. So that's always a good way to repurpose PR. But again, once it's online, that's key. Once you get it up there, you might not even get a piece of earned media out of a press release. But if you do a press release on a digital platform, it's on the internet. And if somebody is Google, I'll give you an example. I have a client sitting right here who's got a cookie and ice cream concept. We did 3 pieces of PR. two pieces of PR on one franchisee. We did a piece of PR when he signed, and we did a piece of PR when he opened. And on both occasions, we released those different press releases on a digital platform. Both times we got earned media from two very different sources. So repurposing PR is a great way to leverage your brand differentiation. Do we have time for one more? Yeah, okay, we do. Go. Oh,
As an emerging brand, I've asked this question a few times and it's dodged around. What is your guys' process to find potential franchisees? And if you're going to use a consulting firm or whatever, how do you get those reps to rep your business with the property owner that they have horrible that they've sold 25, 30?
I'll jump.
yeah, go ahead. I mean,
For
because
the
I'm going to give
first
you the
Famous
FSO
Toast
point of view.
franchisees were customers in the business, period. And I think that's exactly what Kim was referencing, that the fans, the raving fans of the brand are be the ones that carry the torch. As we have grown, we have gone into the PR aspects of it, where we hire a PR firm, and they're responsible for getting the things Gary was just speaking about in terms of that type of PR that would entice people that don't know anything about you. Famous Toastery worked because everybody in Charlotte knew what it was. Now we're in that place where nobody knows what it is outside of Charlotte, Virginia, and South Carolina. So that's where your PR comes. And I want to make sure I'm not dodging.
No, I don't know that you're dodging, but I think more directly.
I think
And then Kim, I'd love to know your thoughts, because I also have an early learning center in my portfolio, and we have challenges generating leads. Okay, so first of all, what's your brand?
We are Complete Pest Solutions, so we're also known as that overabundance of saturated line.
Okay.
and you- and you-
Okay,
and
so
you-
it's a service brand. Okay. So the first thing you want to understand is, what are you selling and who are you selling it to? Because that's going to determine who's going to sell it for you. So my Bible, so to speak, is that if you've got a service brand with a relatively low cost of entry, we're not building a bricks and mortar restaurant, okay, that's going to take $800,000 to build or $500,000 to build, you could, these are just possibilities, you may do well with a broker network like IFPG. You've all seen Red Boswell running around here today, and probably the last 2 days. Why do I say that? Because brokers who will develop their own leads love to sell service brands, because it's a low cost of entry, you don't need a ton of experience, and you can be up and running usually in 90 to 120 days. Now, if you were selling a restaurant, okay, I'm going to tell you, I've been doing this 35 years, probably of the hundreds and hundreds of brokers, I only know 10 that do a good job with restaurants. Why? Because they're expensive, they take a long time to sell, you have to know what you're talking about, and for the broker community, they could sell 5 service brands in the amount of time that it takes them to sell one restaurant. So they don't focus on it. So in your case, that's what I would look at. But the other piece is PR is important. The other piece is you have to wrap your head around the idea that there's a cost per acquisition, and you need to spend money on lead generation. And that's either going to be on social media, it's going to be Google or whatever. And then not only do you have to generate leads, you have to have a team of people, or at least a person, who's dedicated to that. Franchisors, especially emerging brands, for those of you, you're not going to like what I'm going to say. Don't try to sell a franchise on your own. Just don't try it, okay? I'm sorry, try it, okay? What happens is, if you're spending money and you're generating leads, and those leads are falling through the cracks because you've got other things to do during the day, and you're not going to call that person 5 times and send them 3 emails and text messages and follow up on them, then don't buy leads, because you're wasting your money. So it's not that franchisors can't sell their brand. They can, they know it, but they generally don't have time. And it's not what they do. So that's the advice I would give you. Kim, anything you want to
I want to add something.
Sally?
I
Okay.
want to add something that's super important that adds on to what he says. So if you are going to go with a broker group, which is great, I love them. There's a lot of them out there. They're really great. Don't do it unless you can commit to making the relationships with the brokers. That the brokers are going to work with the brands that they like, that they know that can execute, you know, and if they know you, you could be another brand in the portfolio and you're not going to get sold. So if you're going to do it, that's fantastic, but make your relationships count.
Yeah.
You got to cultivate those.
Don't fall into I'm going to use the word trap, but I don't mean it negatively, okay? Don't fall into the trap of, oh, well, they'll do it and it won't cost me any money until they sell a deal and then I have to pay a commission. Don't fall into that trap, because first of all, you have to pay a fee every month to be part of a broker network. And as Sally pointed out, unless you're going to travel to these retreats, and I go to the IFPG one, it's great, it's fantastic. You got to sit down with brokers. You got to get your brand noticed, because they're not representing your brand. They're representing their lead, their client, and they're presenting 20 brands that might fit the bill. Did you want to add anything to that?
Hire a really good marketing company. Make sure, again, validation. Have happy other franchisees, and advertise on all of your marketing pieces everywhere that franchise opportunity is available, because all of your customers, every home you go into, should know that they could own a franchise if they want. Also, if you aren't a member of the IFA, join the IFA and look into VetFran, because veterans would probably do very, very well with a concept like that.
Yep. Any other last question? Because the guy in the back, well, we got another 2 minutes here? I know we're kind of running over. But any last question here? Okay, good. Well, I want to, first of all, thank the panel, okay? I want to thank all of you for hanging out, okay, till the very end. And if you have any questions,